Wheat futures just spiked 4% overnight, the biggest jump in 3 weeks. Why? Because in the last 48 hours, both Russia and Ukraine have been bombing each other's grain infrastructure. Two countries that together supply more than a quarter of the world's wheat are now targeting the ports that ship it. Here is what is happening and why it could hit food prices everywhere. Let's start with what just happened. Ukraine launched a heavy drone assault on the Russian Black Sea port city of Novorossiysk, hitting Russian naval vessels and, according to the satellite imagery, causing serious damage to grain export infrastructure. A loading gallery at the United Grains Novorossiysk plant reportedly collapsed and several silos were damaged. Russia's regional governor said 3 people were killed in that attack, including an 8-year-old child, with 24 more injured. President Zelensky confirmed the operation, saying Ukraine used a mix of long-range drones and weapons to hit Russian warships in the bay. Though he notably didn't mention the grain terminal specifically. Hours after Russia accused Ukraine of that strike, Russian forces head back, striking the Izmail port area in Ukraine's Odessa region overnight, causing damage and fire. Izmail is Ukraine's largest Danube River port, and it's become increasingly critical for grain exports since the war disrupted traditional Black Sea routes. Here is the important framing. This is not just Russia targeting Ukraine's food exports or the reverse. Both countries have significantly ramped up attacks on each other's agricultural infrastructure. Ukraine's infrastructure ministry recorded 35 attacks on ships in port and 22 at sea in July alone, plus 67 strikes on port facilities compared to just 14 total ships attacked in Ukrainian ports during all of the previous year combined. And Ukraine has explicitly framed its strike on Russian oil and grain infrastructure as retaliation, fair payback. In their words, for Russia's continued daily strikes on Ukrainian cities. So this has become a genuine tit-for-tat targeting of the exact infrastructure that feeds people in other countries entirely. Let's talk real impact. Ukraine's agriculture ministry says grain shipments fell 67% in the first 2 weeks of August compared to the same period last year. That's not a small dip. That's most of the export flow just gone. On the Russian side, agriculture consultancy Econ estimates Russia will export between 3 and 3.4 million metric tons of wheat this month, well below the 5-year August average of 5 million tons and potentially the lowest August total since the 2016 to 2017 season. And the timing makes it worse. This is happening right in the middle of this year's harvest season, when export volume is usually at its highest, not its lowest. Here is why this matters beyond market charts. Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson warned this exacerbates shortages of grain and fertilizers, drives up global food prices, and increase the cost for countries in the global south and east. And separately, Ukraine's Black Sea corridors handled around 90% of its agriculture exports, with roughly 92% of Ukraine's wheat historically going to countries across Asia and Africa. So the countries absorbing the worst of this aren't Russia or Ukraine themselves. It's import-dependent nation far from this war. The same pattern that caused a genuine global food crisis back in 2022 when Russia first blocked Ukrainian grain. Shipping giants like Maersk have already started rerouting cargo to Romania's port of Constanta, but industry groups warn land and river alternatives cannot handle even half of what the Black Sea ports normally move. So, to be clear about what's actually happening, this is a mutual escalating campaign by both Russia and Ukraine against each other's grain infrastructure, and the people most likely to feel it are hungry, import-dependent countries thousands of miles far from the fighting. Wheat futures jumping 4% overnight is just the market's way of pricing in exactly that risk. I will keep tracking this alongside the rest of the war. Subscribe if you want the food security angle covered as it develops, and let me know in the comments, do you think this triggers another global food crisis like 2022? See you in the next video.